Welcome to BSSS Rhythm, an online learning platform. Today, we are going to look into an important topic, trade cycles. I, Anitta Jomy Thomas, from Department of Management, would be throwing some light on trade cycles. Today, we are going to cover meaning and definition, features, and phases of trade cycle. Let's look into the meaning and definition of trade cycles. Trade cycles basically refer to recurrent fluctuations in aggregate employment, income, output and price level. So that means there would be constant fluctuations which would be taking in total employment within an economy, the overall income generation, output and price level. According to Keynes, a trade cycle is composed of periods of good trade characterized by rising prices and low unemployment percentages, altering with periods of bad trade characterized by falling prices and unemployment percentages. That means every period would be somewhere or the other connected with good as well as bad phases. So there will be some positives and negatives, and this will lead to some wave-like creation or wave-like movement in the trade cycle within an economy. The other definition, according to Professor Habler, it says that trade cycle is an alternation of periods of prosperity and depression of good and bad trade. So basically, it's nothing but good trade offsetted by bad trade, or at times bad trade offsetted by good trade. Now let's understand what are the features of trade cycle. It says that trade cycle is synchronic. That means it has cyclical fluctuations and it spreads from one sector to the other. The second feature says that it is quite wave-like movement. That is, the trade cycle is always having a period of prosperity, which is at times or most of the time, it is followed by depression. So vice versa, it keeps on moving in such a manner that it creates a wave-like movement. It is recurrent and rhythmic. Now, when we talk about recurrent and rhythmic, as we said, prosperity is followed by depression, or at times we can also say from depression we move to recovery, and from recovery again we move to expansion, etc. So it is going to create a rhythmic movement. The trade cycle is also cumulative and self-enforcing. This is because each phase feeds itself and creates a further movement in the same direction. Trade cycle is asymmetrical. When we talk about asymmetrical, we try to say that the prosperity phase is always slow and gradual, whereas the phase of depression is quite rapid. So it is asymmetrical. And the next point says that the trade cycle is not periodical. This is because some trade cycles can last for few years, whereas certain trade cycles may last for many years, depending upon the economy and its growth. The next is impact is different. It says that the trade cycle is quite different. The impact on industries in different countries may be taking place in different manner, or maybe within the same country as well. So it has a different impact on different industries. Next, it is international in character. So when we talk about trade cycles, we do mean by that when trade happens, it moves on from one economy to another economy. Due to trade, there will be quite natural the fluctuations and its impact would be greater on other economy. So it is international in character. Now, let's understand what are the basic phases of trade cycle. So when we talk about the phases of trade cycle, you can see there is a diagram which is present here. There is a line which moves upwards. This basically shows about the steady growth line, or we can say full employment situation, and there is a time frame which is measured on the x-axis, and on the y-axis we basically have the growth rate. And you can see there is a recurrent but rhythmic kind of movement here. So it is quite wave-like. So when we talk about this phases of trade cycle, the first phase I am going to talk about the trough or depression. So during depression, the level of economic activity is quite low. Real income production, employment and prices, they keep on falling. The resources of an economy remains idle due to lesser employment, lesser production and falling prices. This will further lead to fall in profit, interest and wages, thereby affecting all the different sections of an economy. This leads to the closing down of business firm. So quite naturally, depression will always cause a negative impact on the economy. The second phase that we are going to see is about recovery. Now after depression, quite naturally every economy thinks of recovering itself from its existing depression situation. So here when we talk about recovery, it is basically the turning point of business cycle. We all know that trade cycles are also called as business cycle. So it's a turning point of business cycle from depression to prosperity. In this stage, there is a lot of optimism. In this phase, there is slow rise in output, employment, income and price. Thereby, demand for commodities go up. This leads to an increased investment, bank loans and advances. That means the economy slowly, gradually puts itself up into a normal situation. We are trying to reach to a normal situation. The process of revival and recovery becomes cumulative and leads to prosperity. So every economy put itself back into the revival process. That's why I said earlier, the economy moves towards optimism. The third stage is the prosperity or expansion. Also we call it as peak or boom. Now in this situation, the real income and employment is quite high. All the resources which were lying idle will be put into use. Thus, there is lesser wastages, and this results in increase in wages, prices, profits and interest. The demand for money also increases from the public, and thereby the business or the trade tends to increase. So this is the stage of full optimism. The fourth stage is called as recession. When we talk about recession, quite naturally from prosperity we are going to slip down. So when we talk about the recession, the entrepreneurs, they basically reduce their investment, they also reduce the employment and production. This is basically due to the mistakes they might have done during the prosperity phase. They might have been quite too optimistic during prosperity, and slowly, gradually they realize they might have been wrong at certain situations. Thus, this will reduce the fall in employment, or this will reduce the employment, lead to fall in income, expenditure, prices and profits. The demand for the people with regards to money will also decline. So the banks reduce their loans and advances, and the business expansion stops, leading to depression. So again, optimism will move in, pessimism will set in. So these are the 4 stages or 4 phases of trade cycle. This was all from my side for today. In the next session, we would be going through causes of trade cycle. Stay tuned in to BSSS Rhythm. Thank you.